Could you tell us, Amy, about the first time you travelled abroad and why?
I was just 18 and back in those days I had no confidence in my ability to travel on my own and pick up other languages, much less actually live and work abroad as I do now. So when Carla and Nikki asked if I'd be interested in joining them for a few weeks somewhere sunny, I immediately said yes, and we chose a holiday on the Spanish island of Ibiza.
Why Ibiza in particular?
I love seeing new places, and as it was somewhere neither Carla nor I had ever visited before, Nikki agreed she'd like to go back there, even though it had cost a bit more than going to a Greek or Turkish island, say. I suppose what appealed to us was that it offered such a wide range of activities, including, of course, its famous nightlife. So we found a reasonably priced package holiday for 3, booked it, and on the 1st of July, I headed for the airport.
How did you feel as your journey began?
To be honest, it didn't start terribly well. I was too late for the airport bus and ended up taking a taxi so as not to miss my flight, only to find at the terminal that it had been delayed for 2 hours. So I spent the morning shopping there until I suddenly noticed my wallet was half empty and I hadn't even left the country yet. Feeling a bit angry with myself, I decided to get something to eat, but the high prices put me off and I wished I'd brought some sandwiches, as the other 2 had.
And how did you get on?
Quite well at first, but then there were a couple of disagreements, including one between the other 2 about who should go out for bread. I don't eat it much, so I wasn't really bothered, nor was I particularly concerned about Carla's habit of accidentally locking herself out of the flat, but I did get irritated when I kept seeing used cups, saucers and plates lying around next to the sofa or armchair where she'd been sitting. It's not something anyone in my family would have done.
Were you missing them?
Yes, I didn't want to admit it, but I was.
So did you stay in touch with them while you were away?
Well, before I left, my parents had asked me to phone them while I was away, and I'd said I definitely would, but whenever I felt like doing so, somehow I couldn't. I wanted to be able to tell them what a great time I was having, but as soon as they heard my voice, they'd know I wasn't. I felt guilty because they'd topped up my phone for me, so there was no way I could use lack of credit as an excuse.
Did things improve later in the holiday, or did you wish you'd organised things differently?
A bit of both, really. We decided we'd each make lunch every 3rd day, and that worked pretty well, I found. I was also glad I didn't have to buy much while I was away, because I already had most of the things I needed in my suitcase. I did feel, though, that a fortnight would have been enough, and I could have done without the 3rd week there. Still, I was the one who'd actually made the reservation, so I couldn't complain.
How did you feel about it all on your return home?
I had mixed feelings, really. I knew I'd made mistakes, but I also felt sure I'd been taught some important lessons which would benefit me the next time I went away. And that gave me the confidence to try again, perhaps with different friends, or, more likely, on my own. Because somehow I knew that one day, once I'd graduated in a few years' time, I'd return to Spain and get a job there, which is exactly what I ended up doing.
Thank you, Amy.
Part 2. My parents now both work from home, so they made the decision to move from our city centre flat to the countryside, although it meant big changes for the whole family. It was a winter evening when we first went to the village, and as we walked along the pavement, I remarked on how dark it was without the street lights of the city, and how bright that made the lights of the cars seem as they approached. I also noticed the sound of running water, and when we reached the house, I was delighted to discover that it stood next to a little bridge over a stream. I soon decided I liked the house. It has thick stone walls, high ceilings and wooden floors. The central heating keeps the temperature in all the rooms pleasant throughout the year, although during the colder months, those in the basement tend to get a bit damp, probably because of the stream. My room is actually on the other side of the house, so I don't hear it at night, which is a pity, really. I was used to the constant big city background noise of traffic and voices, and for a while after we moved in, I'd keep waking up in the middle of the night, owing to the total silence there. It doesn't bother me now, though, and these days I look forward to settling down for the night in my large, comfortable bed. I rarely stay up any later than when I was in the flat, and in the mornings I normally wake up at the same time, but there aren't the sounds of the city telling you it's time to get up, so I'm usually in far less of a hurry to do so. The atmosphere here is so relaxing, and I have a wonderful view from the window of my room. Whereas before, I'd see city wildlife like cats, dogs, and maybe the occasional fox. Here, I start the day to the sound of distant farm animals and the sight of rabbits in the open fields. Apparently, there are also deer around, though I haven't actually spotted any yet. The pace of life in the countryside is certainly slower, but I think I've adjusted pretty well to it. I must confess, though, that I can get a bit fed up with the speed of the internet connection here, compared with how fast it was in the flat downtown. In spite of that, I still manage to chat online with my friends there, more or less whenever I want, so I don't have the feeling of missing them that I thought I might have before I moved. There is, though, fairly weak mobile reception out here, sometimes no signal at all, and when that happens, I may not receive calls they're trying to make to me, which can be annoying. I suppose poor public transport is another disadvantage of living in the country. There isn't a railway station within 5 kilometres. It's nearly a 2-kilometre walk to get to a bus stop. And taxis charge a fortune to come out here. It's so different from where I grew up, where the buses stop right outside your home, or you can take the underground. You can live quite happily there without a car, but not here. People say, why not go by bike? But the reality is that it's just too far to ride anywhere from here, and dangerous on those country roads, especially in the dark. I'll just have to rely on my parents for lifts everywhere until I pass my driving test, which I hope will be before I go to university next year. Fortunately, it'll be a shorter drive from here than from where I used to live, and I'll avoid the awful traffic on the roads in and out of the city too.
Part 3.
My next guest is James Hyland, the young Irish entrepreneur who has been behind all sorts of music projects. The latest is Bubble TV, a music channel without advertising breaks. James, welcome.
Hi.
You're 23 now, but you launched yourself into the music world while you were still at school, didn't you? You were a very young starter.
Yes, I was 12 when I started my own radio station in my house. I played music I liked. The station was called Happiness. Not a good name, I know, but I was young. I would have been happy if it had been just the neighbours listening, but it soon became clear that I'd attracted a lot of fans, and I was invited to play at events. I ploughed all the money I made from that back into the station. It got very big, and I got noticed.
Weren't people amazed when they found out you were 12?
Yes, but they were far more amazed when they discovered that I was organising concerts by some of the biggest bands on the British music scene when I was just 16. That also attracted a lot of jealous rivalry. At 12, people are pleased for you, people are happy and encourage you, but when you're just a little older and running a successful business, it can be more of a threat.
So, how did your career in music progress as you got older?
When I was 16, I started working with a local radio station. I didn't stay too long, as I didn't like having a boss, but I didn't just complain and carry on going into work. I ditched the job and set up my own studio at my home in Cork, in Southern Ireland, and began producing commercials from there. Along the way, I'd already started promoting well-known bands. I managed to bring in some fantastic acts to play at festivals and concerts in Ireland.
Now, not so long ago, you launched the Bubble TV channel, a 24-hour all-music channel with no advertising breaks aimed at teenagers. James, you seem to be the sort of person who's too busy to be the couch potato type, but the idea came from watching TV, didn't it?
Yes, I was flicking through all the channels and noticed there were so many of them, but only 3 dedicated to music. And there weren't any exclusively British channels. Most were from the US with British commercials. I hate ad breaks. They interrupt whatever you're watching and spoil the mood, so I decided not to have any. However, I should point out that Bubble TV has sponsored segments, so companies are involved. But the sponsorship doesn't get in the way. You have to look for a change in the background logo during programmes to notice it.
Is it just music and nothing else?
Although it's mainly music, we have 3 presenters who do slots called Juice. They interview bands and go to gigs and festivals. And bands can't just promote their new song or whatever. It's got to be fun. They have to spill the juice, the gossip, in just 3-minute slots. It has to be entertaining.
Now, you're constantly coming up with fresh ideas. Do you sleep with a notebook by the bed in case you dream up a best-selling idea in your sleep?
Absolutely. I text myself with my ideas as I have them. Then each day I go through my texts to see what ideas I've sent myself.
So, what's next?
I have several ideas, but I'm not telling you.
OK, fair enough. Well, finally, have you got any tips for would-be entrepreneurs listening now?
Don't give up at the first sign of hardship. I've had my fingers burnt and lost money through some of my schemes in the past, but I've never let it get me down. I've had setbacks, but you can't dwell on them. You just move on.
James, thanks.
You're welcome.
Part 4.
Of course, polo is normally played on horses, and it's a very fast game. Well, we don't claim that elephant polo is the fastest game in the world, but we always maintain it's the biggest. The elephants do actually enjoy polo, definitely. It's a lot of fun for them because they're social animals, and a polo tournament is a week when dozens of elephants meet up, many from the same family, like a reunion. And, of course, they get fed extremely well, better than in their normal life. They use up a lot of energy and get through masses of sugarcane, especially at half-time. The players sit on elephants and hit a white wooden ball using a long bamboo stick that has a polo mallet head on the end of it. The pitch is about 3/4 the length of a football pitch, and the goals are the same width as football goals. There's a basic saddle and the players are strapped onto the elephants. We've never had a serious accident. A mahout, an elephant handler, sits behind each player and guides the elephant. Sometimes the mahouts have their own games, guiding the elephant and hitting the ball as well. That takes incredible skill. During a game, if the ball hits an elephant, that's fine. Their legs are quite thick and they do get in the way. Quite often they will kick the ball so that they can run after it. They're not allowed to pick up the ball with their trunks, though they sometimes try. That would be a free hit to the other side. There are 4 elephants per team in a tournament, plus the referee's elephant. That's 9 on the pitch at any one time. We usually have 16 animals available on any given day in 4 teams. There are 2 halves, called chukkers, in a game of elephant polo, the same as in normal polo. We played 10 minutes of actual play. Whenever the whistle blows, the clock stops. A novice team might score 1 or 2 goals, if they're lucky, while an advanced team might score about 10. The polo rules are that a man can only hold the stick with his right arm, even if he is left-handed. Women can use both hands. Using the stick is hard work because it's long and the head is heavy. By the end of the game, your arm will be aching, but it's an easy game to pick up with a little practice. During the game, you chase after the ball on your elephant, going quite quickly, and you can easily miss it, though the elephant will often help you out with his foot. The elephants usually supply the entertainment. They might decide to lie down across the goal for fun, but that's an absolute no-no. Ultimately, it's about elephants charging up and down the pitch, scoring great goals themselves and having a lot of fun. If the elephants didn't enjoy it, or if there was any form of misbehaving, they would be removed from the game. Sent off, if you like. It's not worth risking an elephant with an attitude problem. You get all sorts. You get big elephants that are a bit older and wiser, and we use a lot of small ones that can be exceptionally quick. We try to remove what you might call the elephant factor by swapping elephants and mahouts with the other team at half-time. If you've got elephants that don't normally live together, there could be some tension. The sport always uses Indian elephants. The problem with African ones is that their ears get in the way, and they're much taller.